This city is sick, because it's filled with sickos. Things are never perfect. Hell, I know that more than most, being a PI. I've always seen the venal, violent side, the bugs skittering under the rocks. But back then, things made sense. A stiff got iced, look for a dame he stepped out on. A shop got turned over, look for a poor sap with a family to feed and a fresh pink slip. Now, I just don't understand it. Sicko City wasn't always like this. In fact, it used to be called Modesty City. But these are sick times. The streets are flooded with anime and people watching it in their detestable mode. Somebody once asked me, Joe, why do cops do it? Why are the police so obsessed with locking up anime fans instead of solving murders? And you know what I told him? I said that's a mighty suspicious question. And sure enough, that guy had a trunk full of big titty anime figures he was trying to pass off as G.I. Joes. Dames don't got proportions like that, it's just not realistic. Big titties, Jesus Christ. Disgusting. Where are the gams? Right now I'm watching a sicko sweat it out alone in the interrogation room. He doesn't know it yet, but he's under arrest for anime crime. The sight of him turns my stomach, like the 15th shot of bourbon the night a case goes wrong. Through the one-way glass, I can see him squirm because he knows he's guilty. I picked him up when I saw him eating macaroons out of a dumpster behind a French bakery. I look at him and I see the cancer eating the soul of Sicko City. It feels like every perp I book is like trying to dry a dog off in a rainstorm with an old paper towel. It just doesn't do any good. But I have to keep doing it, because otherwise I have to admit the sickos won. I'm gonna let him sweat it out under the lights for a little bit longer. These people are hogs. They deserve to suffer for the darkness inside them, but if I'm being honest, I mostly just don't want to be in the same room as him. Share the same air, smell his sin, but I can't delay forever. I have a job to do. Tom, do you know why you're here?
I'm really sorry, officer. I didn't know eating garbage was technically stealing.
No, I'm going to stop you right there. No, eating out of a dumpster is fun and cool. This was in your bag. Mind telling me what it is?
I mean, it's a big box labeled war bonds, so I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory.
So if I open this, I'm going to be looking at war bonds?
I mean, you don't need to open it. It says it right there.
These are war bonds. I know war bonds have eagles on them, and these don't have no eagles.
Fine! It's anime. It's anime. It's Food Wars. Shokugeki No Soma. It's anime.
You people make me sick.
You mean Italians?
No. Well, yeah, but that's like a secondary grievance. I'm talking about you anime sickos, polluting hearts and minds with cartoons from the East.
You can't keep me here if I'm not being detained. Officer, am I being detained?
Yeah, dude.
Oh. Well, don't I get a lawyer? I don't want to answer questions without my lawyer.
Don't lawyer me, you freak. Anime fans don't have rights.
Fine. Yes. I was smuggling in anime. I was smuggling in Food Wars. But you have to understand, this isn't some sick pervert shit. This is like a real piece of art. Like, this is culture. Will you let me explain?
I'm listening.
All right. So Food Wars, as you might expect, it's a show about cooking. It's about food. Is this whole episode going to be a skit?
Shut up, you swine.
All right, okay. Sorry. Fuck. So it's a show about cooking, as I said, and it faces that classic dilemma that all anime based on mundane activities has to contend with. How do you make this interesting? Now, there's a number of ways you can deal with this. You can go the Yu-Gi-Oh route and set the story in a world where, due to some plot contrivance, this activity is the most important thing in the world. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh makes card games interesting by making the magic real, and the world ends if Yu-Gi loses. Another way is to exaggerate the thing beyond the actual real-life possibilities of it. For this, you want to look at the martial artists and grappler Baki. They're constantly doing shit that is simply impossible. Neither of these decisions is bad, but Food Wars does what I would describe as the right decision. It says simply, We don't need to make cooking interesting. It is. It trusts that cooking cuisine and the act of creating something beautiful and good is inherently worth watching, inherently exciting. After all, like, why is the Great British Bake Off such a phenomenon? You know, it's because humans love to see people that they care about expressing themselves through their creations, competing to put the best version of themselves into a work of delicious cuisine. It's high art that even a simpleton knows how to enjoy on an animal level. It's food. Everyone likes food, and that's what Food Wars does.
I know what food is, you idiot. I don't need a cartoon to tell me.
Of course, officer. I know you know what food is. I wasn't saying that you weren't. I just, well, let me explain a little more. So our hero, and it's important to get to this guy. His name is Yukihira Soma. Soma being his first name, you know, it's Japanese.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know.
Like all shonen protagonists, he's pure-hearted, inspiring, talented, determined. But despite him filling that template to a T, I'd agree that he is an unusually likable and relatable protagonist, and that his specific charisma does an incredible and irreplaceable job in anchoring the show. Just to give you a little background, Soma grew up with his father, Juichiro Yukihira, working at the Yukihira Diner in some idyllic Japanese small business row. It's never clear exactly where. It's some suburb where there's all these small businesses and big capitalism and property development hasn't gotten through yet. I don't know if these places even exist anymore. Juichiro is like the best chef of all time. He's constantly having to go cook for Epsteins who pay him huge amounts of money for specialty meals. But his passion is still this diner that he runs only with his son, where they create the menu, constantly changing it. And crucially, this is a diner, to be clear. Like, it's a place where townies go get their cheap, fast food on their way home from work. Food that fills them up quick and is easy to appreciate. Now, during his childhood, Soma would have these cook-offs with his dad, where they'd, like, both make the same dish, and all the clients at the restaurant would taste it and see which one was better. Over, like, 500 duels that he's had with his father, he has lost every single time. Yet he's constantly trying to learn and improve, both to beat his dad and also to keep up in the diner. And the dad himself is, like, encouraging and kind, but he's also not about to sugarcoat how much better he is than Soma. So we have a protagonist who has like thousands of hours of experience as a short order cook whose first focus is the customer's experience, who has spent countless hours learning, experimenting, and pushing his skills to the brink, only to never once taste victory. So we end up with Yukihira Soma, a protagonist of uncommon skill and drive, who is fully confident in himself while simultaneously completely humble. Absolutely no fucking arrogance in this child, who understands that the point of cooking is to give joy to other people. That's one of the major themes of the series, and it helps make its lovable ensemble cast work. The idea that cooking is only able to reach its apex when there's someone you want to find it delicious. Now, I can vouch for this myself. Like, I love cooking, and I make food for myself, but it's only when I have my friends over, when I have people that I really want to give a good time to, that I make my best food, that I really go all out. You understand that, officer? You've cooked before, right?
You know, I want to believe you that you like cooking for your friends, but for a guy that supposedly is always making good dishes for his buddies, you were eating out of a dumpster.
Well, I don't have a lot of money left over after smuggling in these Food Wars animes. I have to get these things past you fucking fascist pigs. I'm sorry, I just got emotional.
If only it cost you more.
Isn't this the part where you send in the good cop?
I am the good cop. Anyway, the bad cop got fired for wearing an Inuyasha t-shirt off duty.
I don't think that's worth losing a job over. Anime has a lot that it can offer us. Let me explain a little more. Maybe I can change your mind. Food Wars is a good show. So Soma, his particular personality and this ideal that he has, helps him become this kind of great unifying force. Like in all anime, whenever he kicks someone's ass, they become his best friend. But it makes sense here. It actually is reasonable. Like, he's always makes a portion of his food for his opponent when he's in a duel. And they can't help but respect the effort, innovation, and skill he put into giving them this experience. It's also where his diner roots pay off, because He doesn't have a single specialty like the other chefs do, other than to consider all the possibilities to provide the best meal he can under high pressure. So he's constantly aware and in awe of his opponent's skills, and he always wants to learn from them, befriending them, cooking with them. And that's what cooking should be about. It should be about community building, friendship, using your small human hands to make life a little bit sweeter for the people you care about.
Yeah, this is a lot of background, a lot of theory, but what actually happens? What's an episode like?
Okay, I'm glad you asked, officer.
I'm not.
The show takes place at Totsuki Academy. It's a crazy high school for cooking, for elite cooking teens. It's, of course, high school based. It's an anime. So Totsuki is like this elite, the most elite culinary school in the world. Like, if you graduate, you're basically guaranteed a golden ticket to anywhere you want to go in fine dining. And this is because Totsuki students can be expelled at almost any time for any perceived failure. It's an incredibly stressful environment, which leads the students to being stressed and vicious. And not only can you get expelled at any time, but there's also the titular Shokugeki system, which is a system of school-sanctioned cooking duels that can be entered into any time between any two or more students of Totsuki Academy. And a Shokugeki is a duel that has to be entered in willingly by both participants. Both participants must risk something of equal value for the Shokugeki to be officially recognized. And there must be 3 impartial judges that judge their cooking. And this is where most of the conflict comes through. And this is how the actual fights happen. You know, anytime people are facing an injustice or need to take someone down a peg, and this is also how a lot of expulsions happen. There will be a Shokugeki where one opponent demands that the other opponent risk their expulsion if they lose. And this often happens, that Soma is in these scenarios where if he were to lose, he would be expelled from the academy. But, you know, let's not start there. Let's start at the first episode. We meet Soma, and his dad's out of town, and he's in his diner, and this property developer who's wanted to tear down Yukihira Diner for months now to replace it with...
a landlord, so this is the main character everyone likes.
No, she's a villain. She wants to destroy Yukihira Diner and replace it with soulless condos. Anyway, she has some hired goons come when Joichiro's out of town and just destroy the place, destroy all the food in the pantry, and Soma comes by and she's like, if this place obviously is not a real diner because you can't serve me food, so I'm gonna, I guess, steal the property from you and build a new building here. And the only way you can get me to stop is if you can make a great gourmet dish right here. But she knows that there's no food in the pantry, so she has ultimate success. And so Soma has to, because he has just come from the grocery store to get food for, like, his dinner, has to use the food that he just has on hand to create a gourmet dish that can convince this property development person to leave Yukihira Diner alone. And this dish, which is sort of like a famous, like, signature Food Wars meal, is called like a fake out pork roast, where Yukihira takes a potato and he makes sort of like a rough mashed potato and then wraps it with thick cut bacon and then makes like a sauce out of rosemary and red wine. And he slow cooks this log of mashed potatoes wrapped in bacon in the oven, and the bacon juice just soaks through the mashed potatoes. And because he only roughly mashes them, it's sort of like a thick, hearty, pork-flavored, almost like a pork roast, but it's obviously born out of innovation and skill after being put under these limitations. And it's just so incredible to see him think through this process. And that's something that happens a lot. All the cooking in this show, it's not just like magical. They don't just sort of have their hands wiggling around off screen and then wish they pull up a dish. They often spend many episodes thinking about, like, how can they overcome the, challenges in this particular Shokugeki.
Is this one of those shows where everyone talks about having resolve?
No, they talk about surpassing limits.
Jesus Christ.
But like I was saying, that they show the entire creative process of overcoming this challenge. They test out dozens and hundreds of iterations, and they come out with this dish where every single step is intentional. There's no ingredient that is not specifically adding something to the meal. And you see Yukihira do this in this opening episode, and you immediately are like, this kid, I love him. And I want to see him succeed. I want to see how far he can go with his cooking. And so when we get to Totsuki Academy, he eventually joins with the Polar Star Dormitory.
Oh, God. You're going to tell me about the different dorms, aren't you?
Well, I wasn't planning to, but if you want me to, the thing about Totsuki Academy is that all these sort of dorms and clubs are autonomous, and they're, founded by different students who have different philosophies, and that's actually something that maybe many Shokugekis are involved with, getting the resources in order to start a new dorm or a new club.
Please, I'm begging you. Go back to the plot summary.
Yes, sir, officer. So Polar Star Dormitory. It's this dorm full of absolute weirdos and outcasts. He's an outcast because he's a diner kid. Everyone else in the academy is either extremely rich or comes from a big dynasty of alumni. We later learned that Joichiro Yukihira is an alumnus of Totsuki Academy, and because he was the one who recommended that Soma go to this school if he wants to learn how to beat him. But his father has sort of changed his identity and rescinded and thrown off the sort of stardom that he got when he was at this academy. It's only a few people who remember him. And so we meet the people at this Polar Star dormitory where the outcasts live. And he learns that actually this was the dorm his father lived in when he was at Totsuki. And the way Totsuki's all laid out is that there's this entire fucking mountain that is completely given to the academy, where buildings dot it all over, and each building is either a classroom or it's a specific club's research center. It's very crazy, and there's a huge hierarchy, including an elite 10 of the best 10 chefs at Totsuki, who can do whatever and have an incredible amount of power in dictating how the school goes. But we meet Yukihira's friends. We have Megumi Tadoroko. She comes from a rural fishing town where she was sort of the best chef in the town. Her family owned a restaurant, and she helped out from a young age, and her skill was so incredible, and she had such a great time making food to make all the people in her life happy, because everyone that came to the restaurant was someone she knew. It was someone she knew intimately from her life, and cooking was important to her because it was a way that she could give back to them. And she got sent to Totsuki Academy to sort of make good, local girl makes good in the big city. And she's absolutely stressed out of her mind and feels that she doesn't belong and doesn't have the skill. Her specialty is vegetables, cooking with vegetables. We also have some kids who are specialties are, one of them's into fermenting, one of them's into smoking, one of them's into wild game. They all have their different specialties, all of which Soma is eager to learn. And he sort of forms this little group of friends, all based on his ability to show them what they've been missing since they've been at Totsuki Academy, which is the point of cooking. The point of cooking is to make something that expresses yourself, that makes someone else happy. So many people at this academy are obsessed with cooking for, personal glory, for monetary gain, and obviously to not get expelled. So many of these children are just absolutely terrified. Cooking to them is just a nightmarish thing that they have to do every day, or else their life is ruined and they have to go home.
You're still speaking kind of generically here. I mean, what's a type of food challenge you're talking about here?
Well, one of the most interesting ones, I think, to me, in terms of the actual ingredients, is later on, Soma and Akira Hayama, who is a Indian student whose specialty is spices. He has a superhuman nose and understands spices to an incredible degree. They are tasked to do a shokugeki where the key ingredient is bear meat. Yeah, I didn't know anything about bear meat when I watched this show, but apparently bear meat smells like absolute fucking shit and is extremely gamey. And if you don't cook it correctly, it is absolutely inedible. Sort of the challenge of this shokugeki is that Soma obviously has the skill to cook the bear meat in such a way that either via his cooking or the sauce and side dishes he provides, that he can cancel out the gamey stink of the bear. But the standards here are so high that that's not enough. To just cancel out that part of the bear meat is not acceptable, because that would be not actually using the ingredient you have on hand. It's admitting that the ingredient is a handicap that you have to get around. In order to actually do it correctly, you have to learn how to use the sort of overwhelming gamey stink of this meat in a way that is celebrated in the dish.
Oh, then he messes it up and then the show ends, right?
No, he fucking wins. He wins. It's incredible because Hayama, he makes this chicken fried bear steak. And the show always does this, where you see the opponent cooking their food, and everyone watching, because there's always an audience, is always amazed by the decisions they're making and smells the food as it's cooking and appreciate how incredible it smells and what a genius they are for doing it. And he makes this chicken fried bear steak with this special seasoning blend, and they explain the chemistry of the different spices and how they affect the bear meat and why they do what they do. And he explains how he makes this dipping sauce, and how he made that gravy, and why all this different why he chose to put juniper berries in it, and how that accentuates and makes the flavor of the bear so good. And we think that obviously, as you say, that Soma's going to lose, but he makes this sort of fried hamburger patty of a bunch of different cuts of the bear, and he goes to use the cuts that are close to the bone, that have the most smell, in addition to milder ones, and that way he can create a sort of gradient of gaminess. And his decision to deep fry this cutlet is showing to the judges that he's not afraid of the sort of smell of this bear. He's not trying to get rid of it to sort of de-emphasize what makes it bear meat, because he's trapping it in an enclosed area. And this isn't just fantasy. Like, this would really actually be a delicious dish. I did a lot of research about this during work one day.
Did you just admit time theft to an officer of the law?
For anime, I would even commit time theft. But back to the Shokugeki, I wasn't finished. That isn't all to Soma's dish. And then what really puts him over the edge, because that wasn't enough to beat the chicken fried bear that Hayama made, is he makes this sauce out of caramelized honey. And of course, honey and bears, it goes together like peanut butter and jelly. Caramelized honey that he found from a tree in the nearby area when he was doing his experimentation. It's this honey that has a sort of astringent and bitter aftertaste, and that isn't too sweet, so it doesn't overpower the bear, and the astringency actually sort of complements the bear meat. And it's incredible, and he wins, and our boy is just so good, and Hayama's not even mad because he likes it, and he was cooking for the wrong reasons, and he remembers the friendship that he has with Soma when he eats the fucking bear meat, and it's so good, and it makes me feel good.
Sounds like there's a lot of good boys in this show.
There are a lot of good boys, but there are good girls, too.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. That's it. That's fucking funny.
No, it's not funny. It's true. Let me tell you about the two best girls. So the first we have is Erina Nakiri. Now, the Nakiri family is the family that owns Tutsuki Academy. So she is obviously a big fucking deal in this school, and she is actually on the Elite 10. And she's a first year on the Elite 10, which is extremely rare. And her sort of specialty is that she has the god tongue.
Jesus Christ, if you say that shit to me again, I'm going to bury you under the jail.
No. It's fine. What it means is basically that she's like an ultra super taster. She spent her entire life since she was a child as sort of the Nakiri family's barometer of the skill of someone's cooking. People will come to the Nakiri family and serve Erina a dish, and she's able to tell exactly what is in it and exactly what flaws are there and how it was cooked. And part of the consequence of that is that she's sort of bored with fine cooking as an enterprise. I mean, like, she understands what's good. She can't stand to eat something that's bad. But even when she tastes something that is incredible and meets her standards, it's old hat to her, because that's all she's ever had. She's only ever had the best. And also, because she's so fucking exacting, she immediately hates Soma because he's a bumpkin diner boy. And in his sort of entrance exam, she is acting as the proctor. And she is so ready to fail all of these kids who are trying to enter the academy, because to her, there's no way any of them could live up to what she's expecting. And they have to make an egg dish. And he makes this dish that has eggs and rice, and it also has these sort of gelatinized cubes of chicken broth that, as you eat it, melt more and more. So each bite tastes different. And she cannot help but be surprised and shocked by this and really enjoy it. But she has to say, no, it's actually disgusting. You fail. You're not allowed in. But of course, her grandfather, who is the chair of the academy, was watching, and he recognizes that this was definitely a dish worth induction into the academy. So he makes sure that Soma does get included. But Erina is a great character because she is sort of shaken by this. She is shaken by, the idea that this fucking fool, who she definitely hates, has made something that really excites her, that made her have a good time. And she especially hates how, I mean, and I said he's not arrogant, but he to her, she comes off as arrogant because he's confident in his skills. To her, the appropriate way for him to act is to know that he is among his betters. And he simply sees his time at Totsuki Academy as, I am good and everyone else is good, and this is fine.
You know, the way you talk about this girl, I bet you have a little figurine of her, don't you?
No, I don't have any figurines. I don't.
Well, Tom, I don't want to call you a liar, but we found this in your apartment. You mind telling me what this is?
That's King Dedede. That's different. That's an amiibo.
Uh-huh, and I'm not really seeing the difference here. What's an amiibo exactly?
An amiibo is a fun toy from Nintendo that unlocks exclusive content in various games.
Yeah, and one of those games is Smash Brothers, which is definitively an anime game.
No, I mean, there are anime boys in it, but it's not an anime game. It's just that people use them because the disjointed hitboxes are inherently good in a game about spacing.
A likely story, but all this talk of disjointed hitboxes makes me believe that it's a crutch players would use so they can play at a higher tier than they should be.
I agree. I mean, I play as Falco, and
that bird's Italian.
I just feel like, yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. I know you hate them.
I don't like birds either.
I know I'm sort of working at a disadvantage here, officer, but if you let me explain a little more, I think I can convince you about Food Wars.
You know, I'm going to stop you right there. I need a cigarette break. I'll be right back. Do you want a glass of water or anything?
No, I just, I'd like to...
I wasn't going to give you one.
Oh.
I just listened to this freak talk about tournaments and bear meat for what felt like a half hour, because it was a half hour. But I'm not going to lie, I was a little interested, especially when you start talking about tournaments. The main reason I can spend all day listening to a guy talk about anime is because I'm the last cop left. All the other ones, they quit to become full-time sickos. They're all anime boys now. I'm the only detective. I'm also the sergeant and the commissioner. I hate this job. You know, he kept saying it was a battle anime, and I thought, how can there be battles if there's not Goku shooting lasers? And now, I'm really interested. I kind of want to hear more about the Erina character. I could never admit that to him, though, but kind of hoping he blabs and tells me how she develops. No, I'm talking funny talk. I gotta go in there and finish this. I gotta put this freak behind bars.
Did you have a nice cigarette, officer?
No, it's a filthy habit. I hate it, but it's better than anime.
I mean, I don't know about that. Do you want to hear more about Erina Nakiri?
Baka. Fine.
All right, so Erina, she runs into Soma a few more times.
Yeah.
During the course of the school year, and every time she sort of thinks of him as this nuisance that she really hopes gets expelled this time, and she's disappointed to see that every single time. Not only does he excel, but he's so kind and welcoming to everyone around him. Everyone is so enjoying eating his food and being around him, and everyone else has their cuisine elevated by seeing how much effort he puts into his food. And eventually it is revealed that back before Joichiro, Soma's father, sort of revoked his fame, he would often come to the Nakiri home and prepare dinner for them. And that was the one time, whenever he was around, that Erina would actually enjoy eating food. She would be surprised and excited in a way that she never was by any other chef. And when she finally realizes who Soma is, she has to reckon with the fact that, this is why she found his food so good. And she can no longer admit to herself that, he is not worth her time. And some other plot contrivance occurs where, due to, we won't need to get into it.
This is the first thing you said that I agree with.
But she sort of falls out of favor with the administration, and she has to hide out in the Polar Star dormitory with all these weirdos. And she can't stand them because, again, they're all amateurs to her. Soma, she can barely respect, but the rest of them, she just can't. And they're constantly asking for her to taste their food because, again, she has the god tongue.
Ugh, what did I tell you about that word?
I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm sorry, I won't say it again. But she can tell all instantly that these kids, their cooking is just not refined enough. They don't have the skills to make it in a fine dining environment. But at the same time, living with them and understanding who they are, she starts to understand how they're putting themselves and their personalities into their cooking. And she sort of, as she sees their process and as she sees what they're doing to get these dishes out on the plate, she comes to respect them even though they're not, there yet. She sees what potential they have and she sort of softens. She becomes a great friend to them.
Tell me more about this friendship.
Well, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but maybe I could tell you about a Tadoroko Megumi. I mentioned her a bit before.
I'm listening.
All right, so she's very stressed out, and when Soma shows up, she's actually on the brink of being expelled. She has very bad grades because she just never has the confidence to cook with verve in any of her assignments. She's on the brink of being expelled, and that's only making her confidence even more shaky. And one episode comes where an alumnus comes to Totsuki Academy, a Shinomiya, who currently owns a extremely highly rated French restaurant in Paris. And he's teaching a class, guest teaching, and they have to make a terrine based on one of his recipes, and Megumi just doesn't make it up to his standards. And he says, "Oh, you're expelled." And that's it. There's really nothing to do to come back to that. And she is absolutely broken. She thinks back to her family that she's letting down. She thinks she never should have left. She was wrong to ever think she was more than just another kid in a rural fishing town.
Oh, bummer. Shame the show had it end on a low note like that.
Not so fast, pig. I'm sorry, officer. I just was getting a little emotional. No, it doesn't end there because, you see, that's when Soma, who has seen her abilities when she's cooking in a low-pressure situation, he knows that she can do this and that the very nature of Totsuki Academy is bringing her down with its oppressive sort of pressure. And he immediately, without thinking, just challenges that guest professor to a Shokugeki to reinstate Megumi as a student. And because he is an ex-student of Totsuki Academy, he is eligible to be challenged to a Shokugeki. And this is, to be clear, impossible to win. Because he, again, is an adult chef who has spent years running his own restaurant, a French restaurant in Paris that has won all of the food awards that it can. And so they go down into the basement, fight club kitchen to have the Shokugeki. And Shinomiya is sort of thinks it's ridiculous to even accept, but the other, alumnuses who are around, who are acting as the judges, sort of goad him into it. Like, come on, why not? Give him a chance. And Soma is allowed to be Megumi's sort of sous chef. But it is made clear that he is not allowed to make any decisions of his own. It has to be her who decides what they make. And at first, Shinomiya starts baking something instantly because he's a genius. And she is legitimately having a panic attack. She doesn't know what's going on. Her vision is blurring in and out, and she's just starting to cry. She doesn't know what to fucking do. And her hands are off around her face, and she's just hunching over. And Soma walks in front of her and claps her hands between his two hands, and the sort of shock of it wakes her up. And he mentions that this is a technique that his father told him when he got too nervous in the kitchen. And he says, and this is like the fucking catchphrase that sums it all fucking up, the only downside is that you can't do it to yourself. Because, bitch, that's what it's all about. It's about friendship and community. That's what cooking is. And they make this terrine, this 7-layer terrine where each layer is a different vegetable. And then there are 2 different sauces, so you have 14 flavor profiles that you can mix and match.
Tom, this is insane. 14 flavor profiles is too much. It's just not responsible.
No, it's perfect. It completely embodies her sort of personality and her style of cooking. And what's more, she specifically uses allspice as a seasoning because it helps with digestion, because she knows that all of the judges have been eating a lot of heavy food all day, so she wanted to give them something easy to eat. And they all are so fucking amazed by it. They think it's an incredible work, very creative, and it really puts her personality out onto the plate. However, Shinomiya's food is fucking way better, and he wins. And part of the Shokugeki, the stakes of Soma being allowed to be the sous chef, is that if their team loses, he's expelled as well. And so we think this is going to be the end of the series.
Good.
No, it's not good. Well, it's not good. Here's the thing. There's another guy watching who sort of knows Shinomiya deeply and intimately. He was actually dorm mates with him when Shinomiya was at school. And he knows from looking at what he made that he is not pushing himself to the highest level that he can. He's sort of resting on his laurels. He's making something safe. Whereas Megumi made something that was bold and personal. And he calls him out on it. And Shinomiya is forced to admit that, yes, he has reached a plateau in his cooking, because when he went to France to open his French restaurant, he had to contend with being a Japanese man opening a traditionally French restaurant. And there was a lot of racism that was going on even within his own staff. They wouldn't follow his recipes because they knew what French cooking was. And in French cooking, we do it this way. And because of that, the recipes weren't coming out the way that they should. And his food wasn't getting well reviewed because it wasn't the food that he was trying to make. And so he had to take on this sort of iron, icy demeanor where he did not brook any deviation from his recipe in the kitchen and became this like tyrannical figure that would refused to let anyone else into his cooking. He was all alone. He was the only authority. And he did win the award that he was hoping to win for French cooking. But by shutting everyone out, he has sort of imprisoned himself in these recipes that he's created that he will not allow to change at all, because he knows that when they change, when people are allowed to mess with them, they end up being worse. And he sort of admits that this is true. He admits when he finally tastes Megumi's dish, he admits to himself that what she has in her cooking, the ability to express herself, the ability to care about the people who are eating it, the ability to think about something other than herself and her status, is something that he's missing and something that's holding him back from being the best chef that he can. So he too puts in a vote for her. And then there's a third person that puts in a vote for her. So it ends up it being a tie. And they're like, well, a tie, does this mean we're both expelled? And Shinomiya is like, guys, don't worry about it. You're not expelled. And it's like this great moment where everyone's friends. Megumi is so happy. She finally has her confidence back. And it's incredible. It's a great scene. It really is heartwarming. And then just at the very end of the episode, there's this small, short scene of Soma leaving the basement. He's outside the building after this Shokugeki, and it's night. And even in this atmosphere of happiness and joy, he just punches the wall and is fucking furious that they lost. And it just drives, and we get to see inside Soma's head for a little bit. This was a Shokugeki that it is insane for him to have thought that he could win. There is no way that two students could have brought down a trained and acclaimed chef, and yet he was so sure that they could. Because he's, again, fully confident in himself. He never doubts himself, even when he sees situations that should make any other chef cry because of the limitations placed upon him. He finds a way to get through by just thinking about, how can I make a good experience for my customers? How can I work with this pressure? How can I set myself up for success? And he always fucking does. And Megumi then becomes a great chef in her own right. She never again has these confidence issues, and she's able to bloom into her own person. And it's incredible. It's all because of Soma helping her get past that wall.
These all seem like one-off duels. Tell me more about these tournaments.
The sort of peak of the series, I think the best it ever was the autumn elections arc. I'm not sure what the elections are for, but it was just a big tournament with all the first years. I think the winner gets a spot on the Elite 10. I'm not sure. But there was this huge tournament, and honestly, it was the best the show has ever been, because like all tournaments, it gives all of our side characters a chance to share the spotlight and show what makes them special. Show off their specialties in the most flashy way they can. Because often, side characters don't get a chance to really show what they can do in full focus. And it's really an incredible experience. Because not only do you have the excitement of a normal tournament arc, where everyone has their special powers and they're fighting, and the powers also represent their personalities, and so we learn about the personalities and see a clash of personalities. But also it gives the show a chance to show a bunch of different types of cooking. We have, molecular gastronomy, we have traditional Japanese cooking, we have like fermented Norwegian fish, we have fish experts, we have meat experts, we have all sorts of different kinds of cooking. And it's really exciting to see how each different one, has its own approach to what makes cuisine good. We get to see the steps that are taken in order to make gourmet food in each of these genres. It's really incredible and honestly very interesting and inspiring. And you get to see sort of like it's hard for a home chef to make it past the need to follow a recipe. It's I would say the hardest hurdle a home cook has to make in order to really learn how to express themselves via cooking. And it's really hard to understand how you could even do that. And watching this show honestly has been such a help for me in my own cooking because you get to see how and why these people make decisions with regard to what goes in their food. And that helps you understand that, like, recipes are not the end-all be-all. You can just decide to put these things together. And they don't have to be things that you've seen together before. You can make something special and interesting, and you don't have to have anyone else tell you. And, again, it's all the better when there's someone that you're trying to make enjoy it. When there's someone that you want to make happy, you're pushed to be the best. And in this autumn elections arc, you really see Soma reach the absolute pinnacle of his ability. He becomes so resourceful, so attentive, so innovative, and he keeps winning and winning and winning, and he finally gets to this final battle, a three-way battle between him, Akira Hayama, who again had the bear meat fight with him, and this other guy, Ryo Kurahiba, who is he's a Norwegian and he's an expert at cooking with fish. And they have to cook with Pacific Sauri, which is this fish that is in season now. And also part of the Shokugeki challenge is that they have to source the fish themselves. And Soma is at a huge disadvantage here because he's a diner cook who has never gone to the market himself to get the fish, whereas Ryo has done it constantly. And so he just sort of has to live with the fact that he is going to have worse ingredients than his opponents. And so he brings in all of his friends, the friends who know about smoking, the friends who know about fermentation, and he tries hundreds of different ways to treat this fish, to take this low-quality fish and make it taste incredible. And he does the best he can, and I don't want to spoil it. God, it's good.
All right, you freak, you took a good game, but that's not why you're in here. You're not in here because there's compelling characters and interesting dishes. You know what's wrong with the show. Spill it.
I don't want to. Can I leave?
You can leave when I can rest easy knowing my daughter's not going to accidentally see an episode of Lucky Star, you freak.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Out with it.
All right. Fine. I'll admit it. The problem with Food Wars, the big issue that you can't avoid. The elephant in the room. The flaw that brings the show down. I'll say it. Are you happy?
Go.
All right. The show gets bad. Oh, God. The serialization went on too long. They couldn't handle it. The plots repeated themselves. There was power creep. Oh, God. They turned away from their faith that cooking on its own was interesting enough, and they added in this weird plot where, like, Nazi chefs took over the academy, and you weren't allowed to invent your own food anymore, and they had to, like, fight them on a train. And then there were these weird, like, clown chefs that only cooked for criminals that, like, cut the meat with chainsaws, and there was this one guy who would steal other people's knives and magically gain their talent if he held them. It was awful. Oh, the manga, the rankings fell so far, Officer Joe. They fell so far, and then just recently the manga ended, and everyone hated it. Oh, everyone hated the ending.
It's not what I mean, you freak. I know manga never ends right. It always sucks. That's not what I'm trying to get at here.
No. I don't want to talk about it. No. I already said it. There's nothing else. I'm done. I'm done talking to you. I want my lawyer. I want to go.
Look, man. I don't have anyone to go home to. Everyone I know and care about's a sicko now. I got all night, and no one can hear you scream. So out with it.
No, I won't. I just won't.
Fine. I have other ways of making you talk. I'll tell you what, Tom. I'm gonna read the manga. But I'm gonna start at the chainsaw clown part.
No.
And then, I never thought I'd see it, but then the sicko, he started crying.
All right, you can. All right, I'll say it. Oh, all the girls have big titties. Oh, and when they eat the food, their clothes fly off.
It was a tough one. Learning about cooking techniques and forging friendships, colorful characters testing their skills in a big tournament. For a second there, I thought I'd go sicko mode. But in the end, he was just king pervert. All the anime boys are. It's a drop in the bucket for Sicko City to put this guy away, but at least I know I've done something. That's one more monster off the streets, spending his life in the slammer, where there's no anime, and the only comics are artsy autobiographies of sad French guys. But I can't let myself get too happy. My work ain't done. It's never done. Crime never sleeps in Sicko City, and I don't either.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.